Natalie decided to surprise her husband at work, carrying a pregnancy test inside her purse. But the moment she reached his office door, an older woman grabbed her arm and demanded, "Hide under the desk right now. There's no time to explain. Hurry!" Confused and terrified, Natalie did exactly that. A minute later, her whole world fell apart. Before we begin, please let us know in the comments where you are reading or watching from. Thank you for being with us. Enjoy this slice of life story. Natalie walked down the bustling city streets of Boston, her fingers tightly gripping the leather handle of her purse. Nestled safely inside, wrapped carefully in a soft silk scarf, lay a small white plastic pregnancy test. Just an hour ago, it had revealed two bright, unmistakable pink lines, turning her entire world upside down in the best way possible. Her heart was pounding so hard and fast it felt like a bass drum echoing in her chest, vibrating straight through to her temples. She found herself smiling warmly at random strangers. Her mind was entirely consumed by one beautiful image, the face of her husband, Alex, the moment she would finally break the incredible news to him. She pictured his usually calm hazel eyes, which always radiated warmth and security, suddenly lighting up with pure, almost childlike joy. Maybe he'd even forget he was at work, sweep her up in his arms right in the middle of his office, and spin her around just like they used to when they were college students. He'd laugh so loudly that his coworkers outside the door would trade smiles, or maybe he would just pull her in close, hugging her so tight her ribs would creak, bury his face in her hair, and whisper in a voice thick with emotion, "Natalie, we're going to be parents. Are you serious? Really?" Just the thought sent such a wave of warmth through her body that even the mild morning sickness she'd been dealing with for the past 3 days seemed like a small price to pay. Their morning had started like any other. They drank coffee together in their cozy kitchen. Alex, wearing his favorite plaid flannel shirt, had kissed the crown of her head gently. "See you tonight, sweetheart," he had said before heading downtown. He was a senior manager at a major tech firm. Natalie, a third-grade teacher at a local public elementary school, had called her principal that morning to take a personal day, blaming a sudden headache. Of course, it was a tiny, harmless lie. There was no headache, only the beautiful miracle she was carrying inside her. For 2 long years, she and Alex had dreamed of having a baby. There had been endless doctor visits, tests, procedures, and the bitter tears every time the test came back with a single line. They had survived the arguments fueled by stress and exhaustion, always making up under a warm blanket, whispering to each other, "We'll get through this. We will be parents someday." And now, finally, it had happened. 2 lines. The most beautiful sight in the world. She didn't want to call or text. A moment like this deserved to be shared in person, looking into his eyes to catch every ounce of joy on his face. The surprise had to be absolutely perfect. Approaching the glass high-rise downtown where Alex worked, Natalie felt her palms grow damp with nervous excitement. She paused for a second, tucked a stray lock of blonde hair behind her ear, and checked her reflection in the massive mirrored doors. She was wearing the navy blue wrap dress with the thin belt that Alex loved more than any other. "You look absolutely beautiful," he would say, just like he always did. She took a deep breath, stepped into the spacious sunlit lobby, and nodded to the security guard Nick, who knew her well and waved her through with a friendly smile. She headed to the elevators. 5th floor, the software development department. It was a long, quiet hallway with soft lighting. Lunch hour had just ended, and everyone had gone back to their desks. Natalie walked slowly, almost on tiptoe so her heels wouldn't click too loudly, rehearsing the words over and over in her head. "Alex, honey, I have the most important news of our lives. We're having a baby. We're finally going to be a real family. You, me, and our little one." She reached Alex's office door, which was slightly ajar. She hesitated, feeling a sudden rush of nerves. Was he in a meeting? She didn't want to interrupt, but the surprise couldn't wait. As she reached for the doorknob, an older woman in a gray apron, a cleaning lady, suddenly stepped out from around the corner. Her face was lined with deep wrinkles, her eyes sharp as a hawk's, and she was clutching a mop. "Miss, stop," she hissed, grabbing Natalie's arm. Her voice was raspy and urgent, with a faint Spanish accent. Natalie startled, looking at her in confusion. "Who is she? I've never seen her here before," she thought. The cleaning lady darted her eyes around the hallway as if expecting danger. "Hide under the desk, right now. No time to explain. Hurry!" she ordered, pushing Natalie toward the office door. "What? Wait. I..." Natalie started, but the woman didn't let her finish. Her grip was surprisingly strong for her age. "Under the desk," I said. "Your life is on the line," she whispered, shoving Natalie into the room. The office was empty. Alex wasn't at his desk. Dazed and bewildered, Natalie couldn't comprehend what was happening. "Is this a joke? Is she crazy?" she wondered. But there was something so dead serious, almost desperate in the cleaning lady's eyes that Natalie instinctively obeyed. Her heart hammered with real fear now. She slid under the heavy oak desk, clutching her purse to her chest. The pregnancy test inside felt so fragile, so entirely out of place in this absurd situation. The cleaning lady quickly shut the door behind Natalie but stayed outside in the hallway. Natalie crouched in the dim space under the desk, feeling the dust tickle her nose. "What am I doing? This is insane," she whispered to herself. The excitement of the surprise had vanished, replaced by sheer confusion. She wanted to crawl out, but something held her back. Instinct, curiosity, or maybe the fear of looking foolish. A minute passed, feeling like an eternity. Then the office door opened again. Natalie held her breath. Two people walked in. She recognized her husband's steady, even footsteps, accompanied by a woman's soft voice and a light laugh. "Alex, are you sure no one will see us?" the woman asked. "Of course, sweetheart. We're safe here," Alex replied. There was a tenderness in his voice that Natalie hadn't heard in a long time. They walked closer to the desk. Natalie froze, her eyes widening in the shadows. She saw legs, Alex's dress shoes, and a pair of high heels. Elegant, red high heels. Definitely not standard office wear. The woman hugged him. Natalie watched as the woman's arms wrapped around her husband's waist. "I've missed you so much," she whispered. "This is our chance to start over." Alex leaned down, and Natalie heard the sound of a long, passionate kiss. In an instant, her entire world shattered. He was cheating on her, right here at work. The realization burned like a physical blow, but what came next was worse. "We have to be careful," Alex said. "If Natalie finds out, everything is ruined. She'll never forgive me?" The woman laughed softly. "She won't find out. I'll make sure of it. Now show me what you have for me." Natalie felt hot. Stinging tears flooded her eyes. Her purse slipped from her hands, but she caught it at the very last second. Why? How could he? Her mind reeled. She wanted to burst out from under the desk and scream, but her legs were completely numb. The cleaning lady. She knew. She had tried to warn her. But why? The couple moved toward the window, continuing to whisper. Natalie caught fragments of their conversation. Money. A plan to run away together. Each word felt like a knife twisting in her chest. Her excitement had turned to agonizing pain, her joy into absolute betrayal. She huddled in a tight ball until she heard them finally leave the office. Only then, trembling uncontrollably, did she crawl out from under the desk. The room felt cold and foreign. Unable to stay there for another second, Natalie grabbed her purse, held it tight to her chest, and practically ran out of the office, never looking back. The office door clicked shut louder than she intended, echoing down the empty hallway. The cleaning lady was nowhere to be seen. On the elevator ride down, Natalie pressed her back against the cold metal wall and finally let the tears flow. They streamed hot down her cheeks, dripping onto her blue dress and leaving dark spots. She didn't even try to wipe them away. She didn't have the strength. He is cheating on me, right there at work. Planning to leave, to start a new life with someone else. While I'm pregnant. With our child. Her decision was made in an instant, sharp and final. She wouldn't tell him anything. She wouldn't forgive him, and she wouldn't give him a chance to explain. It was over forever. Back at their apartment, where only that morning they had shared breakfast and laughed over some silly joke, Natalie moved mechanically, as if someone else were pulling the strings. She dragged a large suitcase out of the closet, the one they had bought for their honeymoon, and began packing. Sweaters, jeans, a few dresses, basic toiletries. Nothing extra. Nothing that would remind her of him too much. When Alex called, she ignored it. Let him look for her. By evening, she was standing on the platform of South Station. In her hand was a one-way Amtrak ticket to a quiet, snowy town in Vermont, where her distant Aunt Clara lived, a woman she had only met a couple of times in her life. The train pulled in with a heavy hiss of brakes. The doors slid open, and Natalie stepped inside, never looking back at the city lights fading into the dark night. The train sped through the pitch-black night, its wheels clacking rhythmically against the tracks, as if trying to drown out the unbearable ache in Natalie's chest. She sat by the window in an empty row, her forehead pressed against the cold, foggy glass, watching the dark, featureless silhouettes of pine trees, occasional porch lights of distant farmhouses, and endless empty fields fly by. She was still clutching her purse so tightly, as if it held her entire remaining life, not just a plastic stick with two pink lines. It was a painful reminder that the new life she was about to build was already destined for loneliness, no father for her child, and a future of lying to cover up the truth. The tears had stopped somewhere near the state line. Only a hollow emptiness remained, cold as a winter wind, along with an ironclad resolve: I am never going back. Alex called dozens of times and sent texts she refused to open. Where are you? What happened? Nat, talk to me, please. She deleted them all without reading. All she could see was that image. His hands on another woman's waist, his voice filled with a tenderness that had long vanished from their home. If Natalie finds out, everything is ruined. Arriving early in the morning in the quiet, sleepy Vermont town, Natalie stepped onto the platform, breathed in the crisp, freezing air, and felt a strange sense of relief. No one knew her here. No one knew her pain or her past. Aunt Clara met her at the station, a gentle older woman with kind eyes and warm hands. She hugged Natalie tightly, asking no questions. She simply said, "Let's get you home, sweetheart. You'll rest and we'll figure the rest out later." A few days later, Natalie rented a tiny one-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. It was modest but clean, overlooking a snow-covered yard and cozy wooden houses. The town was peaceful and slow-paced, with wide streets, very little traffic, and the sweet smell of wood smoke drifting from chimneys. Time moved slowly here, which was exactly what she needed. A week later, she got a job as a third-grade teacher at the local public elementary school. The young kids still believed in magic. Every morning, she woke up, put on a smile, and went to her classroom, trying not to think about the new life growing inside her. The pregnancy was difficult. Morning sickness, sleepless nights, constant exhaustion. But Natalie never complained. She would gently rub her stomach in the evenings, whispering, "We'll be okay, little one. Just you and me." She didn't want her child to ever know the father who had betrayed them. "He doesn't deserve you," she told herself, though during the darkest hours, a stray thought would sometimes creep in. What if I made a mistake? What if it was all a misunderstanding? But the memory of that kiss, the red heels, and the words, "Start over," quickly extinguished any doubts. Months passed, Her belly grew, and she could no longer hide it under loose sweaters. Her colleagues at school offered congratulations, asking about the happy father. She would smile tightly and reply, "He's far away, working in another city." No one pressed further. People in small Vermont towns respected boundaries. The baby was born in February, during a fierce blizzard that howled outside the hospital windows. A healthy, beautiful baby boy with dark hair and eyes in which Natalie instantly recognized Alex. It was both a blessing and a heartbreaking reminder. She named him Daniel, after a grandfather she had never met, but whom her mother and grandmother had always spoken of with warmth, as a strong, kind, and dependable man. "May you have a heart just like his," Natalie whispered, kissing her baby's soft forehead. Life slowly fell into a quiet, lonely routine. Mornings began with feedings, diapers, and Danny's first smiles. Days were spent at the school, teaching kids to read phonics and draw bright yellow suns. Evenings were for daycare pickups, making dinner, and grading papers under the soft glow of a desk lamp. Natalie became one of the most beloved teachers at the school. The kids adored her gentle voice, her patience in listening to their endless stories, and the fact that she never raised her voice. She even began to smile genuinely again when Danny took his first steps, and when he first babbled, "Mama." But at night, once her son was asleep, she would sometimes pull out an old photograph of her and Alex, laughing on a beach vacation. She would stare at it for a long time before putting it back in the box. "You chose this," she would whisper into the quiet room. 5 years flew by. Danny was growing up fast. He was a lively, energetic, incredibly curious little boy, with a mop of messy dark hair that stuck out in every direction. His laugh was so bright and infectious that even the grumpiest neighbors couldn't help but smile when he ran past. Natalie bought him his first bicycle with shiny red fenders and took him to art classes on Saturdays, where he spent hours drawing ships, dragons, and his mom with superhero capes. At night, she read him bedtime stories about knights, wizards, and how good always triumphs over evil. She thought the pain had finally faded, that the past was buried deep in another city, in another life. But sometimes, Danny would pause in the middle of playing, look her straight in the eye with a serious expression, and ask, "Mom, where's my dad? Why doesn't he ever come see us?" Every time, Natalie felt a sharp, icy pang in her chest. She would sit beside him on the rug, stroke his hair, and answer softly, keeping her voice steady. "Daddy is very busy, sweetheart. He works far, far away, sailing across oceans and looking at the stars. But he always thinks of you, and he loves you very, very much." It was a lie to protect her child. One evening, while Natalie was at the kitchen table grading papers, her phone rang. An unfamiliar number. She answered. "Natalie, it's me, Alex." The voice was the same, but it sounded broken, utterly exhausted. Natalie froze, feeling the color drain from her face. "How did you get this number?" she whispered. "I looked for you. For a very long time. Through old friends, old connections. Natalie, please, just listen to me. I know you left because of me. I understand. I'm not even asking for your forgiveness right now. But we need to talk. It's important. Visibly important." She wanted to hang up, but something in his tone made her hesitate. "What do you want?" she asked coldly. I want to see you. And our son. I know we have a son. Please, Nat, just give me a chance to explain." She was silent for a long time. The only sound in the room was the ticking clock. "No," she said finally. "You lost that right 5 years ago." "Natalie, wait. You don't know the whole truth. I know what you saw and what you thought, but I wasn't cheating on you. It was a setup. It had to be done." Natalie laughed bitterly. "A setup? I saw it with my own eyes, Alex." Your arms around her, Your kiss. Yes, you saw it. But it wasn't what it looked like. I can prove it. Please, let's meet. I'll drive up. Just one conversation. Natalie hung up. Her hands were shaking. She walked over to Danny's bed, where he was sleeping curled up like a little ball, and gently touched his cheek. What if he's right? What if I was wrong? The thought was agonizing. For 5 years, she had hated a man who perhaps didn't deserve it. She didn't sleep at all that night. In the morning, when Danny woke up and hugged her, she made her decision. I need to know the truth, for his sake and for mine. She sent Alex a short text. Come, in 2 weeks, but only one conversation. If I sense even a hint of a lie, you leave and never come back. Those 2 weeks passed in a blur of anxiety. Natalie lived on edge, waking up every morning thinking that today everything might change, and falling asleep holding Danny tight, whispering, "Everything is going to be okay, sweetheart." She didn't tell her son his father was coming. She didn't want him getting attached to someone who might just disappear again. Alex arrived on a Saturday morning. They agreed to meet at a quiet little diner on the edge of town, which was practically empty in the mornings. Natalie left Danny with Aunt Clara, saying she had errands to run. Alex was already waiting at a booth by the window. His hair was graying at the temples, and his shoulders slumped. He looked much older than she remembered, and the sight of him tugged unexpectedly at her heart. When she walked in, he stood up but didn't try to hug her. He just stared, as if afraid she might vanish. "Hi," he said softly. "Hi." Natalie sat opposite him, folding her hands on the table to hide their shaking. "You have exactly 1 hour. Talk." Alex took a deep breath. "Everything you saw in my office that day, it was staged. All of it. I have never cheated on you." She scoffed, a lump forming in her throat. "I saw it with my own eyes, Alex. Your hands on her waist. That long, passionate kiss. Your words. If Natalie finds out everything is ruined, how do you explain that away? How do you stage that?" "Yes, those exact words. I know that's what you heard. I reviewed the security footage from the office later. You were there, outside, and you heard it. But if you had found out the truth at that exact moment, everything really would have been ruined. Our lives, our safety, and the life of our baby, the baby you had come to tell me about." Natalie froze. "What are you talking about?" Alex reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a thin folder and laid it on the table, opening it. Inside were photos, printouts, message logs, and official documents from the district attorney's office naming Alex as a key witness in a federal criminal investigation. "That woman you saw me with, her name is Megan. She was my coworker, but she wasn't just a coworker. She was an undercover detective working inside our firm." Natalie stared at him, trying to comprehend. "The company I worked for was involved in a massive money laundering scheme, millions of dollars moving through shell companies, fake government contracts, and kickbacks. High-level corruption. I stumbled onto it by accident. I saw weird transfers, forged invoices, amounts that made no sense. When I started asking questions, senior management approached me. They told me flat out, either you keep your mouth shut and help us, or we destroy you and your family. They tried to force me into their schemes, signing papers, routing payments, becoming part of the system. But I wouldn't do it. I wasn't going to prison for someone else's greed, and I couldn't let you get hurt." He spoke quietly, but each word hit like a heavy stone. "I went to the authorities. They put me under protective custody, but we needed to gather concrete evidence. Megan was brought in as an undercover agent. Her job was to stay close to me so I could safely pass information to the task force without management suspecting a thing. We had to fake a relationship. Everything you saw, the hugs, the kiss, the sweet talk, was staged specifically for the bugs in my office. Management had installed hidden microphones to spy on me, to make sure I was loyal and fully in. We used their own wiretaps against them. Natalie felt the ground slide out from under her. Did you know I was coming that day? No, I had no idea. You were never supposed to be involved or anywhere near that office. I am so sorry, Nat. But you saw us and believed it. At that exact moment, Megan was actually fitting me with a wire to record a meeting with my boss about the corrupt government contracts. It was all a setup for that. Natalie buried her face in her hands. Why didn't you explain it to me later? Why didn't you find me? Because 3 days after that, everything fell apart. Our cover was blown. There was an attempt on my life. Megan was shot. The feds immediately pulled me out under the witness protection program, gave me a new identity, and relocated me to another state. I couldn't contact you. It was too dangerous. They were watching, Nat. If I had reached out, they would have come after you. I couldn't risk your life. He fell silent, staring down at the table. I thought about you every single day. Every morning I woke up knowing you were out there alone, hating me, believing I betrayed you. When it finally ended, the investigation and trials took over 4 years. I started searching. I found out through old contacts that you had left the city. I found out you had a son. I knew he was mine, but I didn't know how to approach you. I was terrified you hated me, and I knew you had every right to. But I couldn't live without you both anymore. Natalie was silent for a long time. Tears ran down her face, but she didn't wipe them away. For 5 years, she whispered, I believed you threw us away. I believed you chose someone else. I raised our son completely alone. He asked about you, and I lied to him. Alex reached across the table, his hand hovering near hers but not touching it. I know, and I'm not asking you to forgive me right away. I just want to be there. I want to see him. I want him to know he has a father, and I want you to know I never stopped loving you. Natalie looked into his eyes. There was such deep pain and sincerity there that she believed him. Fully. I don't know if I can just forget 5 years of pain, she said softly. But I don't want Danny to grow up without a father. Only if you promise me, no more lies. Ever. I promise, he said, his voice cracking. They left the diner together. Natalie slid her arm through his for the first time in 5 years. And for the first time in 5 years, she didn't feel alone. Natalie walked down the street beside Alex, each step feeling both light and heavy. The January air was freezing, but a long-forgotten warmth was spreading through her. They walked in silence almost all the way home. Only when they reached the old brick apartment building did Alex stop. Nat, does Danny know about me? She shook her head. He knows he has a dad, but he's never seen you. I told him you worked far away. He asks sometimes, but he doesn't push. Kids his age believe you when you say everything will be okay. Alex nodded, looking down. I don't know what to say to him. How do I explain 5 years of being gone? Tell him the truth, Natalie said gently. Not the whole heavy story, of course, but tell him you couldn't be here because you had to keep us safe. He'll understand. He's a smart boy. They climbed up to the 3rd floor. Natalie unlocked the door and the sound of childhood laughter immediately drifted out. Danny was in the living room playing with blocks. Aunt Clara was in the kitchen drinking tea. Aunt Clara, we're back, Natalie said. Thank you for watching him. Clara looked at Alex, her eyes narrowing slightly, but she didn't say a word. She just nodded, kissed Danny goodbye, and promised to drop by tomorrow. Natalie took Alex's hand and led him into the living room. Danny was sitting on the floor, building a tower out of colorful blocks. Hearing footsteps, he looked up and froze. His dark brown eyes, identical to his father's, widened. Mom? He asked softly. Natalie knelt down beside him. Danny, remember how I told you about Daddy? That he was far away, but that he loves us so much? The little boy nodded, his eyes locked on Alex. Well, he's here. Daddy's home. Alex slowly stepped closer and knelt down. His voice trembled. Hi, buddy. I... I've wanted to meet you for so long. Danny studied him carefully, taking him in. Then, he suddenly flashed that bright, infectious smile that always melted Natalie's heart. You're tall, he said simply. Taller than Mom. Alex laughed softly, a sound of pure relief. Yeah, I'm pretty tall. And you? Look how big you are. 5 years old? I've missed so much. Danny handed him a toy block. Do you want to build a castle? The tallest castle in the world. Alex took the block, his fingers shaking slightly. I would love to. More than anything. The three of them built the castle together. Natalie sat close by, her arms wrapped around her knees, watching father and son connect for the first time. Danny talked about preschool, his friends, and how he once caught a butterfly and let it go. Alex listened intently, nodding, asking questions, and smiling. When the tower fell, Danny laughed and said, It's okay, Dad. We'll just build it even higher next time. Alex hugged him gently, as if afraid he might break. Danny hugged him back, squeezing tightly. Are you staying? Danny asked suddenly. Alex looked up at Natalie, tears shining in his eyes. If Mom says it's okay, I'm staying forever. Natalie stood up, walked over, and placed one hand on her husband's shoulder and the other on her son's head. He's staying, she said softly. We're all staying together. That evening, after Danny had fallen asleep curled up against his father, Natalie and Alex sat in the kitchen. She pulled the old, faded pregnancy test out of her purse. The 2 pink lines were slightly faint now, but still visible. I never got to tell you that day, she whispered. I came with a surprise, and instead, everything shattered. Alex took the test, staring at it for a long time. I almost lost both of you because of my job. Because of the secrets. Never again. He stood up, walked over, and wrapped his arms around her. Natalie buried her face in his shoulder, just like she used to. I was so scared I'd never be able to forgive you, she said. But seeing you with Danny, I realized I forgave you a long time ago. They held each other for a long time. Finally, Alex kissed her temple. We're starting over. For real this time. No lies. No secrets. Natalie nodded. For real. The next day, they walked in the park. Danny ran ahead, holding his father's hand on one side and his mother's on the other. The snow crunched under their boots. The winter sun shone brightly, and the air smelled of cold pine and hope. Far behind them, in the past, was the woman in the red heels, the wiretaps, and the danger. But here, in this quiet Vermont town, a new story was beginning. The story of a family that had survived the storm and finally made its way home. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and share this story with your loved ones.